Hi everyone, welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm Go Local News editor Kate Nagel. I'd like to thank Rick Simone for his show on the taste with new restaurants here in Rhode Island. It smells pretty fantastic here in the studio. But now we're going to tack to politics, and I'd like to welcome back Dr. Luis Daniel Munoz. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm catching you before an event this evening here in Providence. Independent candidate for governor, really sort of revamping and advancing your campaign with some new messaging, some new ideas.
Absolutely.
So talk with us a little bit about what this entails and what you want the public and the voters to know.
Thank you. Well, just to present a bit of my background again for any of the voters that don't know much about me. I'm a graduate from Central Falls High School, was fortunate enough to excel academically, acquired a doctoral degree in medicine at the University of Connecticut School of Medicine, and then got into the tech industry, specifically medical technologies like medical devices and information technologies. And that entire experience for me was one of growing up, seeing the struggle, understanding the inequities at a personal level, but also kind of maturing and evolving my perspectives, especially as I went through academics and business, and understanding that the decisions that are often made at the top in terms of fiscal responsibility really do have an impact and opportunity at the ground level, and whether those opportunities are accessible. So my vision for Rhode Island is really one that I've tried to encapsulate into 3 initiatives. The first is what I entitled the DINO program. The DINO program essentially stands for Dynamic Intelligence for National Opportunity, and it's about giving our youth a big footprint both in the Northeast and throughout the United States. And one way of doing that is for Rhode Island to follow Israel's model of education evolution over the past 20 years, which was essentially to take high school students, some junior high actually, there was some innovation around that, so junior high to high school, start teaching them about technology, the principles of business ethics, help them formulate a critical thinking and an understanding of questions that will drive them towards opportunity. In high school specifically, imagine we took students both from private, charter, public schools, transported them to our private technical universities such as New England Technology, also Bryan University, Roger Williams. Those universities already have after-school programs that are helping youth to acquire opportunity right out of high school. So this is about connecting the dots. And so the DINO program really is preparing our youth right at the age of, at the grade of 9th and 10th grade with the skills that they can really just go into the industry and do some work. Now, obviously that likely will not happen. So what I believe is that those 16-year-olds can then be empowered to go back to their community as a civic engagement or civic service component in their junior and senior year. They can build a legacy with it through the vehicle of building something in their municipality. And by building that legacy, they'll stay. And so they graduate high school and now have skills in cybersecurity, they have skills in robotics, diagnostics, and that's not to prohibit them from going to college, but they essentially will be ready for high-paying jobs independent of whether they go to college. Now,
so I'm going to ask you here a little bit. So is this sort of to augment what's already currently in place? Would this be sort of some structural changes? Would this be a really major overhaul of education in the state?
The only new investment I see is in transportation to the private universities. Otherwise, it's about connecting the dots. So there's some, you might say, somewhat structural changes, but I also believe that the private universities, we haven't been talking about them enough, what they do for our community, how we can leverage the resources that they're offering us. And so there's an element of what I think is, to say it academically, kind of resource sharing that might happen between the universities. Also exposure by our youth to the universities, which I think is a marketing advantage to any university that would participate in the program. Now, the DINO program, that civic engagement or civic service element, helps our communities in terms of revamping them, getting everyone really involved and recreating and improving it. But also, I believe that the private universities do have merit scholarships, do have programs that earn credits can be acquired for those students. So there's a lot of advantages to just creating, connecting these dots that we've talked about to use the resources we have without spending a lot of money in another building or promising free education that's really just a limited opportunity, seeing that there's only one college that they can go to.
So let's talk a little bit about that. That was a big focus of the governor this year. One of the things that Go Local had pointed out was a lot of these students aren't achieving the bare minimums to even reach that second year. Was that, in your opinion, not the right approach?
Yes, I think a lot of students that go into CCRI are taking remedial coursework. Class is over again, essentially to catch up, which happens, and I'm not criticizing that in a negative way, but I think we need to see what's really being offered. If 2 years of community college are being offered as a vehicle to a doctoral program, then I think there's something wrong with that messaging. Whereas I'm saying, let's work with all our universities, let's create a comprehensive program that provides students with vocational skills that they can get high-paying jobs, and also with an opportunity to go back to their communities and to build something and to acquire credits, earn credits for doing that. I think that's really what America represents in terms of opportunity, and I believe that program would actually foster greater accessibility to more people in terms of actually getting into potentially having a vehicle to a private university.
Okay,
yeah.
So that's the education component.
Yeah.
You've got a couple more.
I do. The second program is the Rhino program, Redefining Intelligence for National Opportunity. It's an adult version of the Dino program.
Okay.
And so the Rhino program really embodies an initiative to connect the dots with our retraining programs. So right now, if you hear about retraining, you often hear about electric boat, welding, a lot of manual labor. Now, those are great jobs, I think, for some people. But there's also opportunities in medical coding, in sensor diagnostics, for manufacturing. Essentially jobs where you can sit in front of a computer, put a number next to medical diagnosis, and that helps in how hospitals and insurance companies interact. Now, that type of program requires a certification. It's in high demand in the Northeast. Not many people have it. And it pays $65,000 plus a bonus. We have amazing industries out there. There's no reason we shouldn't have a retraining program statewide that takes advantage of the diversity of opportunity through certifications that are easy to acquire and that lead to high-paying jobs, not only for people who want to do manual labor, but those that want to just apply the intelligence they have already acquired throughout the years as administrative assistants or any other type of position, and really just kind of repurpose it for industries in
a way to address again what's already sort of in there for the infrastructure for the state,
right.
But to again target other career opportunities that might not be tapped right now.
Right, higher paying jobs. And also there's this language learning element to the Rhino program, which I believe is not necessarily emphasized well as to whether we have it or not in Rhode Island. There are certainly communities that have English as a second language. They are hardworking. They love the fact that they're an American, right? And they really just need opportunity. So how can we help them get over that language hurdle? And sometimes language can be that they have an ability to communicate but don't have the business language and rhetoric that they need to succeed within the profession. So there are certainly smaller resources, smaller investments that I think will have a larger impact overall that we will make into the Rhino program. The last, so that's opportunity. That's what I believe economic opportunity is. I do think that we need to invest in small businesses. I think we need to redirect Commerce Rhode Island. We need to reduce tangible property tax. All of those nuanced policy issues need to be tackled, or economic issues. But the Rhino and Dino program are my way of saying we must invest in our people, and not just in another building, because our people ultimately represent the facets in this diamond that we call Rhode Island, and we need to make sure they shine brilliantly.
So would this incorporate, you did mention commerce a little bit, a lot of the debate during the gubernatorial campaigns that have already heated up so far has been Commerce RI's approach to those sort of big ticket, big dollars to bring folks in. Right. Would you say that that might not be your approach if you were governor, that it would be, again, to these opportunity-based programs to provide jobs?
Absolutely. Opportunity-based programs. I do think that we need to, Rhode Island itself needs to define what a small business is. A small business is, that is. Based on the SBA Small Business Administration, they might qualify a small business as one that has 500 employees, $30 million in revenue. I mean, that's certainly not the way that I think we should define it, because that definition of itself has allowed investments to be made, these corporate incentives and whatnot, to companies that in some respect may fall within the realm of helping us, not being that big, but they're huge. And so as we redirect Commerce Rhode Island, I want the Commerce Rhode Island staff to really serve as project managers. They need to go into the municipalities. They need to help us define what a small business is in Rhode Island. They need to help us define whether or certain kind of incentive packages that could serve our businesses. I think every business goes through a valley of death, right, where just the capital cost, the cost of operations is far too high to continue. Can we help them get through that valley and then ultimately grow, scale, and build our local economies up?
So you mentioned two things pertaining to education and opportunity, both from the K-12, K-16 perspective, also adult learners as well. There's another piece of this revamped puzzle that you're going to tell us about here.
Absolutely. So, and it's also not to forget about early education. Again, there's certain things that we need to tackle in that area, but these programs just embody overall what I believe is opportunity at its focal point. The last program is what the initiative, I would say, is the MENDI initiative, which is Mending and Innovating Community Health Centers. Right now, there's a lot of publicity around how great our hospital systems are, and they are. Hospitals are doing well, specialties are doing very well. I mean, when you have a nonprofit hospital making millions in revenue, I mean, they must be doing well.
Someone's doing well.
Right. But if we really want to reduce the cost of care and thereby reduce our premiums, our health insurance premiums, we have to tackle issues at the ground level, and community health is the ground level. So the MENDI program is a way of really working with all of the community health centers throughout the state. Some have done great work, like in South County, and helping them kind of develop a comprehensive plan around it, dealing with addiction, mental health, care coordination for our elders, and also urgent care services for our veterans. So right now the VA Center has challenges where our veterans need help and sometimes have to wait 2 weeks before they can access a physician because the coverage that they have doesn't essentially work with another type of institution, private institution or nonprofit. Now, there's some policies around that are trying to help veterans at the federal level with an insurance company called Veterans Choice. But at the state level, I think we need to do more. Again, to ensure that our veterans are taken care of when they need care, that our elders can be guided at the community health level, that they can possibly even stay home more, have resources, assisted living at home. And so the MENDI program the hypothesis is this, the idea is this, that if we can help people at the ground level by just helping them know where to go more immediately and leveraging things like this, Skype, telemedicine, devices that give information to doctors while the patient's at home or in the community health center. If we can do these things, then by making that small investment, and frankly, maybe even just using the investments that have already been made in some of these health centers, then not only will we care for people, but we will reduce total cost of care, we will reduce health insurance premiums, and that, in my perspective, provides me with more leverage as a governor to continue to make sure that those prices, that burden, that cost burden for families continues to go down.
Well, I appreciate your coming in
Thank
to,
you.
again, give this your proposals here moving forward. What is next in the campaign trail? You've literally got an event on Broad Street at 5.
Right. So heading over to the event, it's at 500 Broad Street, restaurant in Providence, Punta Cana Bistro. It's me sharing this, I would say, with more of a personal story as to how I've gotten here. But really would love to see you there if you'd like to attend. Otherwise, it's just going to continue. I know that there's been not so much activity in certain social media platforms, though now we're ramping up, but it's really because I've been spending time walking. When you walk down a single block, whether it's Hope Street in Bristol or Broad Street and Elmwood Ave in Providence, you start to realize that one half of the street businesses have one need, and then the other half businesses have another. And many of those businesses are saying that they haven't seen council people or specific political officials in some time. And in my perspective, how can we really tailor opportunity to the communities, the people, unless we're with the people? So I join anyone who's listening to join me on the road as I walk and as we engage others, because ultimately my candidacy, I believe, represents the only true vehicle to change, to positive change for Rhode Island, to a better Rhode Island, and not just a party Rhode Island.
So, as we heard from you, you've been on the streets listening to folks formulating what these positions are. We're going to provide those for you on Go Local as well. Again, going to be out tonight and around. We'll provide links to the doctor's campaign. Dr. Luis Daniel Munoz,
thank you so much for taking
the time to come in. I'll let you go around the corner.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center with our next guest. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm Go Local News editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for joining us for the 4 o'clock show. Just talked with gubernatorial candidate Dr. Luis Daniel Munoz about his revamped campaign platform. I'd like to welcome my next guest in live from New York. It is Joe Wilson Jr. It is Joe Wilson Jr., who is taking a hiatus from his role in the Trinity Repertory Company to be involved in the production of The Iceman Cometh on Broadway. I think we sent you off with pomp and circumstance to go down to this production. And folks are just asking, what's it been like? You've been on Broadway before, but I have to imagine every situation is unique. What's it been like to be part of this production?
Wow. Well, first of all, it's so good to be here. I'm getting a little taste of being home, which I miss Providence so much. But this has really been an extraordinary experience. I mean, I was on Broadway almost 18 years ago.
Wow.
With the production of Jesus Christ Superstar. And what's different is I was 32 or 30. I can't even do the math. I was much younger. But also what makes this different is a 4-hour epic Eugene O'Neill play. And so doing this kind of play, this kind of material has been a big challenge, actually. We work as understudies in a vacuum most of the time. We don't get a chance to have the kinds of reps that you would have doing the production every single night. And so it becomes my responsibility to be my own dramaturg. It becomes my responsibility to make sure that I know my lines. I know my blocking, and most of my work is done, my learning is done by watching the production. And so I don't really have a chance to get the work into my body. Versus with Superstar, I was doing it every night. I was dancing every night. I was singing every night. And so this is a very different experience. And it's been a huge, huge challenge. Not to mention the difficulty of the material and the sheer volume of the material. But the stress of, getting that phone call and saying you're on tonight for Denzel Washington or you're on tonight for Michael Potts, because I'm actually covering two roles in the show.
And how much does that encompass, for the person who's not in theater, as you talk about this mammoth production, to absorb and to learn all this material? I mean, talk with us about that preparation process leading up to, opening night. How, to the average person, what does it entail?
Well, I've been in this business for almost 30 years and 25 years. The difficult thing about this process is that, in essence, I'm developing a brand new way of working for myself. I have, over the course of my studies, over the course of my career, I've developed a way of working that works for me in terms of a traditional process, but nothing about this process is traditional. So I'm having to really develop and cultivate a whole new way of working. Because in essence, we use all of our senses in the theater to develop a role and to learn material. Sight, smell, taste, touch. And in essence, I've been only given really one of my senses, and that's, hearing and sight, or two of my senses, hearing and sight. But in terms of my touch and movement and where I am on stage, all that's been taken away from me. We have one rehearsal a week that's 3.5 hours to rehearse a 4-hour play. So you imagine we don't get through the entire play in one sitting.
Yep.
And so with one rehearsal a week, we may get through one act twice, because what you all don't know is there are 8 of us understudying an 18-character play, and many of us are double. The parts are what we call covered and double covered.
Okay.
Meaning some parts are covered by 2 actors, and so every time you go through the play once, we have to go through it again to have actors have a chance to switch parts. And sometimes you're acting, not even looking at the person. You have no idea who they're playing at times, because in one scene someone's playing Larry, and in the other scene they're playing a totally different character. And so it's really, in every way, it messes with your mind in ways you can't even imagine. And also the difficult thing was, again, I have not been in New York in 13 years. So being in a new environment, I am the only out-of-town cover that we have.
Really?
And so the adjustment for me was not only being in a new city that I haven't been in a very long time, but also learning a copious amount of information. And so, my days are literally spent going over my script all the time, trying to find ways to simulate the work in my apartment. You know, I'm always on my feet working. I'm walking around my apartment. I'm visualizing where I am on stage. And I can't say it enough. You know, when that day comes, if it ever comes, and that's the other drawback about this job, if I ever get a chance to do either of these roles, so much of it will be foreign, and I will be on stage looking at actors whom I've never seen before on stage, literally. And so and also the challenge of this work is I'm a perfectionist. I want to have absolute control over everything that I do.
Yes.
And what this process has taught me is that you can't always have control, and that's good for me. I have so little control in what can happen. I have to have faith, and I am the kind of person who have always wanted to make things happen, and sometimes at the expense of just trusting that it will happen, and trusting that I am good enough, and trusting that I know the information. And so this has been an exercise for me. It's challenged me spiritually. It's challenged me intellectually. It's made me relax. It's forced me to take every day, one day at a time. Because if you try and think too far ahead, it would stress. If you just thought about the sheer amount of information that I have in my brain, you know, if I thought about it like over the course of all of it, it would just freak me out. And so you learn it bit by bit, piece by piece, and you trust that when that day, if that day ever comes, that I am standing on the Jacob stage in front of 1,000 people in a Broadway show, that I will know what I need to know, and if I don't know it, something in my body will take over that will lead me through the process.
We'll be ready to go.
I can't tell you, there isn't anything that's been more scary than that.
Thinking of that day potentially coming, I mean, you must have molded this option. I mean, when this opportunity came to you to go down there and do this, you made that call, you said, I want to go and do it, and you just walk through just, you know, how, you know, to the average person, what it's like to be an understudy, to be ready for that performance. And let's talk about the show. Let's talk about The Iceman Cometh. Rave reviews, critical acclaim. You know, what's it like to be, you've got a great cast at Trinity. We had them on for Ragtime not too long ago here. They all gave you a shout out. What's it like to be working with this particular cast and crew that, again, this show is just, again, is overwhelmingly been well received?
Well, it's been extraordinary. You know, what's been really interesting is, you know, as accomplished as this cast is and not only in terms of theater, but stage and screen, and working with George and watching this man work with these actors, you know, this play has made a mere mortal out of all of us. You know, I have a story, which is a great story. My first day of showing up at the rehearsal hall, I was there to sign contracts and also there to meet my other understudies and have a meeting with the stage manager. And when I arrived at the new 42nd Street Studios, they sent me to the wrong floor. And so I ended up actually on the rehearsal room floor, and I saw the doors of the hall in front of me. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in the wrong spot. But I looked out of the corner of my eye, and I saw sitting in front of me Denzel Washington. And I turned to him, and of course I had the biggest grin on my face. And he said, Joe Wilson, right? I said, yeah. He said, Providence, right? I said, yeah. And he said, how's Trinity treating you? And I said, it's great, you know, and we began talking, and, you know, he made a comment to me. He said, you know, he was joking. He said, you're trying to play all the parts there, because he understands that being in a regional company, that I have a chance to play parts that otherwise I wouldn't get seen for in New York. And then we began talking about the play. And he said to me, he said, this play is a killer, and this role is a beast. And that, in a way, made me feel so good, because I had the same exact response. and I didn't have the luxury of being in a rehearsal at that point. But this play has made all of us scared. This play has humbled us all. This play has challenged us all. No matter where you come from, and a lot of these actors, again, have done movies and TV, and they've been around the block. But this play has made us all equals, because this is just an epic piece of work. It's a 4-hour, 4-act play. It's a beast. And you know what's really great about the production, and just talking about the production, that when you read this piece on the page, it's really difficult to get through. You know, Eugene O'Neill, he tends to write in dialect. There are lots of complicated turns of phrase, the way these characters speak to each other. They speak in a language and in a way that isn't doesn't fall on the contemporary ear in a very in an easy it's a difficult play to read. But what George has done with this production is obviously we're getting these diverse audiences because some people, yes, are coming because they love the play, but a lot of people are coming because they love Denzel Washington or Colm Meaney or David Morse or Bill Irwin. They love these actors, and so they're coming to the play for all kinds of reasons. And so when you're doing a play like this, you would expect that after 4 hours that some people may not want to make it through the play, or everyone, not a single seat in the play. So our journey. You've audience cheering, not only for Denzel, but individual characters that they fall in love with. George has made this play so accessible. And the play is actually, as dreary as Iceman could be, a play about a bunch of alcoholic drunks who, if you know the play, the play is also about murder and deceit and so forth. The play is actually really funny. And so George has found the humanity in these characters in a wonderful way that makes it so accessible. And so I am so proud of the production because of that. Oftentimes these kind of epic, sweeping plays can be so off-putting for people, especially in, a setting where you have all these stars involved and folks are coming to see their favorite stars. But they're falling in love with the play. And that's been the most extraordinary thing about this process. And quite frankly, it reminds me of what we're good at Trinity Rep. We do these kinds of plays at the Rep. And our audiences are trained to be able to come and receive these plays. And we pride ourselves on the clarity of the story at Trinity Rep. And George is doing the same thing with this production on Broadway with an 18-character, 4-act, 3-intermission play. And that's what I'm really, really proud of. That at the end, these audiences stand and cheer and roar, not just because it's Denzel and not just because it's Colm Meaney, and not just because it's David Morse or Bill Irwin or Tammy Blanchard, but they're cheering and roaring because they have gone on a journey. And that just warms me every single night. And it reminds me that not only are we doing great work here, but it reminds me that I come from a legacy and a history and a company and a home that we approach the work in the very same way. And we provide this kind of work to our audiences. We strive to provide that kind of work to our audiences every single play, every single season at Trinity Rep. And so that's what's been the most familiar about this process, is the commitment to storytelling and quality storytelling and accessible storytelling and full human storytelling. And so that's been the most rewarding part for me.
Well, it's been great to catch up, Joe, because speaking of storytelling, a lot of folks kind of are following your New York days vicariously through social media. We've had you here in studio before in Providence. We miss you here in Providence, but wanted to give folks...
I miss y'all so much. I miss you. I'll be back July 1st, and I look forward to my 14th season at Trinity. I'm actually coming back, and I have to give a special shout-out. I'm coming back this weekend because I'm hosting, along with Becky Gibble, the Manhattan Avenue Project Gala at the Pell Chafee Performance Center on Monday. And so I'll be back in for a quick 36 hours, and I'll be back to my show here on Tuesday night. But I'm looking forward to being back this weekend, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all this summer and to be back for my 14th season.
Well, Joe, again, we appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to give us a little glimpse into what it's like to be an understudy on Broadway. And we look forward to having you here back in Providence. Joe Wilson Jr., we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back with our next guest here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm Go Local News Editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for joining us for this 4 o'clock news and politics show. We like to bring you stories from Rhode Island that are making an impact, and I'd like to welcome Cindy Duncan here into the studio today.
Hi, thank you.
To talk about your story, to talk about the Rainbow Fund, to talk about your daughter, and to talk about bringing awareness and tools for youth for mental health here in the state. You just had the Rainbow Fund, the Rainbow Walk and Run.
Yes, we did. It was the 12th of May.
And how was that? Talk with us about your story and where you are now in bringing your message to Rhode Islanders.
Well, 11 years ago, we lost our daughter to suicide. And when that happened, I wanted to bring my family back together. We have another son who suffers from schizophrenia, and I had the opportunity to see what a mess the mental health system is everywhere. And since I saw that, I realized I needed to do something. We started the Rainbow Fund about 8 years ago in Cassie's memory. And now we have a race every year. This year we had about 525 people here. We've raised about $48,000. When we first started, we gave the money to NAMI, which is the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill. And as we moved ahead and realizing that there was more we could do, we live on a farm, and we have taken our farm and made it into a nonprofit so that we can help people with mental illness. Right now, I have the great privilege of being connected to New England Tech's Occupational Therapy Department, and they are helping me to have master's students come to our farm, and they work with people that have suffer from mental illness, and they work on the farm. We've gone through a summer program last year, and we just finished our second five-day-a-week, 8-week program, and it was a huge success. We have about 9 people right now, and I couldn't be happier.
So talk with us about that farm approach and helping folks who have mental illness and coming up. What's a day like for someone who's taking part in this program?
Well, the day starts at 9 o'clock. We meet and we kind of discuss their day. We figure out what kind of jobs they're going to do. We have greenhouses, we have a country store, we have fields where people are working in the fields. We just finished planting tomatoes in one of our greenhouses. And then we have coffee break. We work for a little while again, and then we have lunch together. We've turned our house into, our living room is now our lunchroom, and we have, everybody meets, and we all have a really good time. Working together builds people's confidence, and that's really important. And what we want to do is be able to build people's confidence so they can go back out into the community again and be able to be productive just like everybody else.
And so working in this hands-on environment, you talk about being in a group setting, but having that sort of tangible work, being together, is that just helpful for folks and again that focus for their mental health?
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah. I think that my husband and I, being farmers, have helped us get through all the things that we have dealt with, and since we have come through all the things that we had to deal with, I feel that it's beneficial to other people. Working is really important. It builds your self-confidence. It's great to do that.
Well, I appreciate your coming in to tell the story, because you mentioned, again, your personal story and dealing with what you said was a tough environment with the state, with dealing with mental health issues. Has the state gotten better, in your opinion?
Since Cassie's death, I have seen a lot more people talk about mental illness. We have a long way to go. When people go into the hospital and are dealing with things, they tend to medicate them and push them back into the community again. And that really needs to change, especially for people over 18. And we need to get families involved in their healing. When you have cancer or diabetes, you go into the hospital, and before you leave, they have a family meeting. They'll pull everybody together and show you how to handle everything. And when you have a mental illness, there's a lot of times you're discharged from the hospital and your family doesn't even know that you've been discharged because they don't bring the families into it because of all the HIPAA laws and all those kind of things. So we really need to educate people and bring family support into the equation because I feel that that's the only way we're going to move ahead with all of this.
And so you're hard at work, there at Harvest Acres, and you're putting on the run and the walk on the side. How much support are you getting? Is it from the walk and the run? I mean, how, from a financial standpoint, what are your needs?
Well, we've been very, very lucky. Since all these things have happened in our lives, I am very, very grateful to the many angels that God has put in our lives and moved us ahead. And I'm eternally grateful. As we moved ahead, we raised money for NAMI, and then we wanted to turn the farm into a nonprofit. And we had the great privilege of working with Green Development to put in a solar project on our farm. And it was the most wonderful thing we could have asked for because it gives us an income so that we can make sure we're going to be okay, and that way we could turn the farm into the nonprofit right away, and all the profit from our store is now going to go to run the program. And right now, our program is free to everybody.
Wow.
So, and we're on a break right now. We are actually going to start next week working with the Hassenfeld Foundation. They reached out to us and wanted to help move us into the future. So we're really excited about that one.
So potential, because you talk about the close-knitness and the smallness of people being able to participate, but this sounds like something that could grow or could be replicated to be able to serve more folks in the community.
Yeah, I sure hope so. We have a lot of work to do, and I'm on a great mission with a lot of great people. This is a big thing, and a lot of other people can help do this. So it's not. I know there's a lot of people out there that share my mission. So.
Well, I appreciate your taking the time to come in to let folks know more about it, more about the story behind it, bringing the attention to the issue of mental illness and showing the resources that are available. And you have, sounds like a great opportunity for folks to really take part and move forward. And again, the meeting could get bigger, could go greater.
Yes, I'm hoping.
Anything else you want folks to know about Harvest Acres, about the Rainbow Fund?
As far as our program goes, our next program is going to start the 31st of July. Our phone number is on our website. It's harvestacres.org, and our phone number is area code 401. 480-2099. And if you know of anybody that would be interested in coming and joining us, we have the 2 weeks before we have an intern. They come and tour the farm and see if it's the right fit for them. So if anybody's interested, it would be awesome.
Give them a call, check them out. I appreciate your taking the time to come in here. Again, share your story, what you're doing for the community. Cindy, thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll let you go around the corner, and we'll wrap up here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I want to thank Cindy Duncan from Harvest Acres talking about how they are working with folks with mental illness here in Rhode Island in a farm-based setting. Thanks to Cindy. Joe Wilson Jr., Trinity repertory actor down on Broadway in an understudy role in The Iceman Cometh, talked with us a little bit about just what that entails and how he's looking at coming back here to Providence for his 14th season with Trinity Rep. And kicking off the 4 o'clock hour, Dr. Luis Daniel Munoz about his enhanced vision for Rhode Island. If you missed it, we'll be providing more links to that as well. Of course, 3 o'clock was Rick Simone with The Taste, a few new restaurants here in Rhode Island. It's been a busy day here at the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow up at the State House. Lots of things heating up there. We look forward to bringing Go Local Live right to you. We look forward to seeing you. I'm Go Local News Editor Kate Nagel.